Hello and welcome to another video. The title of this video is The Non-Falsifiable Nature of Christianity. Well, I just want to talk about something that is an issue that I have with Christianity. Like one of the biggest critics that I have about Christianity. And I put up the story a while back to ask if it was possible for me to criticize the religion even though I'm in the religion, and a lot of you said it's okay, so I'm a lot more comforted. So anyway, what exactly am I criticizing? I'm criticizing the fact that a lot of the parts of Christianity are non-falsifiable. So to start off, I'll explain what non-falsifiable is. So when something is non-falsifiable, when a claim is non-falsifiable, it means that you cannot physically test to prove it right or prove it wrong. Falsifiable as in you cannot prove that it's false, right? And so in science especially, non-falsifiable claims are they're basically something that you don't want, because in science, if you want to prove that a claim is right, you have to be able to you have to have a criterion for why it's wrong. And so if there is no possible way to prove whether it's right or wrong, then what's the point of the claim, right? You're basically just making a statement that is useless, right? It's like making a claim that I can see bunnies everywhere, right? Nobody can prove that right or wrong. It's just me making the claim. And that's why science has a problem with non-falsifiable claims. The reason I have an issue with non-falsifiable claims in Christianity is not so much because, science, like it's not because I want to prove to science that Christianity is right, but the issue I have is that you as a Christian, right, will be unable to prove to yourself whether the thing you are going about doing is actually valid or not, right? There is no way of proving yourself right or wrong, which means that you'll never know if you went the wrong way or not, with regards to your faith, basically. So in this video, I want to outline some examples within Christianity of non-falsifiable things. So the first thing is intellectual arguments. So I think this is one of the issues that many of the atheists, or not even atheists, like skeptics, have with having arguments about Christianity, right? Is that when you go to the very ends of the doctrine or the argument, you will realize that 90% of the time you will reach a point where you basically can't answer the question because it's just too big, it's just too deep of a question to ask, or something that relies on God's nature. And usually the argument ends with "we'll never know" or "only God knows," right? Because God is an infinite God. The thing is, I want to stress, and I will stress this again multiple times, is that non-falsifiable things in Christianity are not necessarily wrong. They're just not possible to prove right or wrong. So when you reach an argument that ends with "only God knows," well, maybe it is true that only God knows because God is infinite and significantly more powerful and knowledgeable than us. If we could understand everything God knows, then we might as well be God, right? So it is the case that if Christianity is true, it is possible that intellectual arguments should end with, it's reasonable that they should end with, well, only God knows, or we'll never know, right? So the second thing is prayer. So for prayer, right, it's not possible to falsify whether God has answered your prayers or not, or whether, essentially that. Because you see, right, either way, if you prayed for something and it happened, right, then your response would be, "Oh, well, God answered my prayer." But if it didn't happen, then you would reply with, "God chose not to answer my prayer." Or like, maybe I didn't have enough faith, maybe I didn't fast enough, maybe my life is full of sin, right? The issue here is that no matter what the outcome is after you pray, you'll have an answer for it, right? And that means that if Christianity isn't true, then you would be giving answers you wouldn't be able to get out of the hole, basically. You wouldn't be able to prove yourself wrong and see, oh, because God didn't answer my prayer, therefore God isn't real, something like that. And again, I would stress that, if Christianity is true, it makes perfect sense to have this kind of reasoning, that you have an answer for both, whether God answers your prayers or whether he doesn't. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Holy Spirit's prompting. So this is like God speaking to you, essentially. When God tells you what to do, when God gives you a calling, when some people receive callings from God, right? It's like a deep impression on your heart. The thing is, I'm pretty sure if you're a Christian, you've definitely had this question before. It's that, what if it's just me speaking? What if it's my own rational mind coming up with answers? Or your own conscience making decisions, something like that, right? And the truth of the matter is you'll never know, because you cannot prove that the impression that you got on your heart was from the Holy Spirit. It's non-falsifiable. And so you can't prove it, you can't disprove it, and so you kind of just have to go with gut feeling. And this is kind of the issue that I have as well with the nature of subjective experience in Christianity, is that there is a lot of emphasis on personal revelation, I would say, from God. And because it's personal revelation, because it's personal experience, when you experience God's presence come on you, it is completely subjective. And it means that it's just you experiencing it. So somebody on the outside cannot prove whether it's right or wrong. And so what that means is that you could also end up going off on your own tangents and be unaware of the fact that it could be right or wrong. See, if there are multiple major religions, and as long as two different people from two different religions receive something from God based on their own subjective experience, and one of them has to be wrong, then that means that one person experienced something wrongly. And because it's possible to experience something wrongly, you can't prove yourself wrong. And so that's another really difficult thing to wrestle with, the fact that when the Holy Spirit speaks to you, you will never be able to prove whether it really is the Holy Spirit or not. So the next example that I have is about bearing fruit. As in bearing fruit in ministry, bearing fruit in what you do, in life, or blessings, basically. So in any endeavor that you do for in God's name, for example, right? There are two outcomes. It's successful and it's not successful. And for those two scenarios, you will always be able to find an answer that will support the fact that God was behind it, that God exists, basically. If it goes well, you would say, well, God blessed me, his hand was upon me, and he granted me success. And if it doesn't bear fruit, then you would say that the success, it's either we can't see the success, or that God wasn't with us during this endeavor. And the strange thing is that there is also a flip side to this. The fact that in any endeavor that is done apart from God, something that you do that you didn't consult God first, right? Whether it bears fruit or not, you won't be able to tell whether you are right or wrong. So if it bears fruit, then you can just say that God blessed you without you knowing, or that the devil is using this success to lead you into further sin. And if it doesn't bear fruit, then, well, obviously, because God wasn't with you, therefore you didn't do well, right? And so the thing is, you cannot use fruits of your labor as evidence for whether somebody has God with them or not, right? Because there are obviously successful people who are secular, who are atheists, and there are successful people who are religious. And so it's not possible to falsify based on whether success was granted to you or not. So the next thing is about God's plan. So it's pretty common for people to say when things go badly, right? When things go poorly, tragedy happens, the common response to give is, it's all part of God's plan, right? God intended for this to happen, it's for the greater good, and you shouldn't be sad about it. Likewise, if there is success, I mean, it's part of God's plan. Well, wow, things worked out, all God's plan. So either way, you kind of have something to comfort yourself with, basically. And this is one of the major criticisms of religion as a whole, which is that it's the opiate for the masses, right? It's that it's used as a form of medication to hide from the reality of suffering, and to make yourself feel better by having an answer for everything, that God is the one who grants you success or failure, and that he has his hand behind it, it's all going to work out in the end. On the one hand, this criticism is, well, it's fair to make from their perspective, right? But if you take a look at it from the assumption that Christianity is true, well, of course, this line of argument it makes perfect sense. If God actually exists, then whatever happens to you, good or bad, is part of his plan. And so, I stress again that even though I point out that it's non-falsifiable and it feels a bit off, especially rationally, it is not something that makes Christianity false. If Christianity were true, this would be a result of it. The next one, which is the second last one, is about salvation. So, salvation-wise, I would say that, I had a discussion with a friend about this before, but can you really know if you're saved? And I think you can be assured, but you won't know 100%, right? The thing is, if you fell out of the faith, the idea is that, I think I'm treading into Arminian and Calvinist theory here, but I'll just keep it simple, I won't go into that. But essentially it's that if you fell out of the faith, and because of the fact that you cannot lose your salvation, it means that you were never in the faith in the first place. And so, it means that you'll never know, you'll never know that you were actually on the outside. You weren't actually saved in the first place, or you are already saved, that kind of thing. I won't touch salvation too much because it is another topic for another day. Finally, the last example that I have is about rational choice. Choice to believe in the religion, essentially. And so the idea is that for the rational mind, you would obviously need compelling evidence to believe, right? You won't believe something and have faith in something if there's no reason to believe it, right? It's what the definition of trustworthy is. So the issue with that, with Christianity especially, is that, you need the faith first to be able to see, right? The faith comes before the evidence. And so it's like the whole, you need experience for a job, but you need a job for experience kind of thing. You can't have, for the rational mind, I would say, the more atheist, scientific, secular mind, if they want to believe, right, they always say that they want to see evidence first before they believe. But in the Christian faith, you can't. You have to dedicate time to pray and call out to God. You have to first have the faith that God will reply you before you get an answer, before you get a revelation from God, And so that's another pretty difficult thing about Christianity to accept. So all this being said, I will wrap up with the thing that I've been repeating over and over again. It's the fact that if Christianity were true, all these non-falsifiable things would be part of it too. And so it doesn't render Christianity any less valid because it has these non-falsifiable things. And I will add a note that you can't compare directly to science, because the non-falsifiable thing is a very sciencey thing, and religion, spirituality, isn't exactly a hard science. It's closer to a pseudoscience than a hard science, and that means that you can't really apply these non-falsifiable things. It's just that if you try and take a look at it from a scientific, rational mind, it'll be a really big stumbling block for you, and it'll be hard to accept that there are these non-falsifiable things that you just have to take for granted, or you have to live with the fact that you cannot prove it wrong. As for me, although it is one of the bigger issues that I have with Christianity, that's the way that I come to terms with it. It still bugs me sometimes that if I were really wrong, there would be no way for me to prove myself wrong. There would be no way to realize, aha, this didn't happen, therefore Christianity isn't true. And so, yeah, I guess it's just something for you to think about. If I said anything that you disagree with, or if I said anything that is wrong, please do let me know in the comments below, or you can just message me if you have my number. Yeah, and I'll see you in the next vlog, next episode of The Extreme Exchange. Yeah, bye bye.